Story has the ball. Story tosses it to Robbie. Robbie is going to the clear.
Okay, we're watching the red team. The red player just picked up the ball, and they're throwing it out front to their number one. Now, you're wondering these ones, when the number one's out front and they just run straight in and make the goal, what do we have to talk about? But anyhow, the number one is in the blue shirt now, does have it, and sure enough is out front right here. We'll just have to see if we can find something else to talk about. So after he has it, that's the number 1 on the Palomino horse. That's right next to him. And the opposing number 3 is on the white horse, considerably behind. And our ball carrier had the opportunity. In fact, he still is slightly forward of the orange player on the Palomino horse, where he could easily connect with him, connect forward of the Palomino horse, and control that player, which he doesn't really need to control him, except if he would control the player on the Palomino horse, that player would not be able to control him. But anyhow, our ball carrier was in a good position to just get up against him before that orange player on the Palomino horse got forward of him, and he could have controlled him all the way down the field. But here you can see he lets that player get forward of him, and now that player is in a very good position to control the ball carrier. In fact, if he would just position his horse correctly, he could have the ball player stopped very easily. But even if he just slows the ball carrier down, he could give chance for his number 3 to get up there, who had started out behind. But our number 1 let that orange player on the Palomino horse get in that position where our ball carrier could be controlled, and he didn't have to do that. So the Palomino horse player did actually slow him up enough that the opposing number 3 on the white horse got almost within racket range of the ball carrier. And I'm not sure why the orange number 1 pulled off. But he does pull off, which is lucky for our ball carrier, because the 3 was almost there on him. So the opposing 1 had pulled off, and our number 1 elects to go straight in, bounces straight in. Here, I would have suggested that he not bounce it on his stick side, because the number 3 was very close there on his stick side. As it turns out, everything went all right. But if he had fumbled the pass or anything, or the bounce had gone wrong or anything, he would not be first to it again. Whereas going across the line, if she's coming up on the stick side, if he had taken it over to his non-stick side, it would have been much safer in case something does go wrong with it. And he does get the pass off. She might have been within stick range, but she doesn't affect his throw at the goal, and he does get a shot off at the goal, and I think he makes it.
Story passes, Robbie has it.
So here I think we talked about this connection, the placement of that ball for the connection, but that is the number 1 in the blue shirt about to catch a pass in the end zone. So there, he's just caught it, and of course when he catches it, he's headed for the goal, right in front of the goal, and there's no way the 3 can get up to interfere with him.
For Kiki. They make a pass. Kiki finally gets that catch. Kiki shoots and...
Okay, we're watching the the blue team, and the number 1 has just received the pass in the end zone. She had the 3 on her left side. She is looking for a pass on the right. That was good for the connection. Now she's got it, and the 3 is a little bit behind. If she wanted to, at this point, she could just go right up into the 3 and push the 3 up to the goal, to face the goal and just shoot the goal. And if she doesn't do that, doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. When your team has the ball, you just have options. And there could be several correct options, but she elects not to take that option. And so here she just checks up, and then she starts turning toward the number 3. And it looks like there was probably space that it would have been a legal and safe turning toward the number 3. And after this, it's real obvious that the number 3 has horse issues and isn't really able to stop her horse. But if she were able to stop her horse at all, another reason it's not wise to turn toward the player is because, like, if that 3 had stopped, you turn toward her and she's in your way. You have to get around her. But in this case, she didn't have to worry about that. And so by the time she gets turned facing the goal, the 3 is just completely out of sight, no stopping at all. So she casually walks up and shoots the goal.
And taking a throw. Kiki has the ball. Looking for area to shoot, and she shoots.
Okay, we're watching the blue team this time, and right there, the number 1 has just caught the ball in the end zone, and the number 3 is kind of in a good position between her and the goal, but our number 1 has space between her and the 3 that gives her some options, and the 3 might be just a hair behind, which would also give her options of possibly checking down, pushing up against very far forward on the 3, and just bending her around and facing the goal and shooting, which would be like probably the most direct way to just go make a goal right quick. But she doesn't elect to go up against the 3 and bend around. But as she turns toward the 3, there's plenty of room between her and the 3. And the 3 got crossways to the goal by the time the 1 got crossways to the goal. So the number 3 isn't in a bad position. But as our number 1 gets right here and has plenty of room to turn toward the number 3, and the number 3 is committed all the way to the right, it would be a good time to just continue turning left like our number 1 is doing, and jump out and go to the number 3's, go around her on the left. But she doesn't jump out, and in fact she didn't even complete the turn. So she didn't take advantage of the weak position that the number 3 had gotten into, and now she's kind of just standing and thinking, which I don't ever recommend that the number 1s do once they have started maneuvering, because you wasted whatever maneuver you had just made to get the number 3 kind of out of position, and you kind of have to start all over. But here she does, just kind of settles down and doesn't make a move to get past the 3 yet. So here she is, just kind of stepping around. Now it looks like she's going to try to go around to the left, but by now the 3 is no longer committed to the right. So you let the 3 get out of that weak position, and now the 3 is back in their good strong position, so it won't be so easy to get around to the left of them. So she kind of hem-haws around, and it is advantageous for the number 1 to have space between her and the 3, and our number 1 just closed that space. Now, if she had space, you get the number 3 committed one way and then go around them the other way. Since she doesn't have space, she can either turn away from the number 3, try to make a turn, or run away to get space. And here she starts to make her move around to the left after the 3 was already committed to the left, and she does get by, but not because of her fancy maneuvering. It's because the 3 just couldn't get her horse to move. So from here on, it's pretty easy for the number 1. So the 3 horses actually almost shine completely off the field, and our number 1 has a clear shot at the goal and could have taken it from right here, or even a stride or 2 before now. But she doesn't take it right when it's available. She does still get the shot off, and does get it off before the number 3 can get between it and the goal. And I think she makes this one.
Seconds left in this checkup. Time for one more. And that's a goal.
Okay, we're watching the blue team, and the ball just got passed into the area. That the 1 doesn't get it on the first go, but she is between the 3 and the ball, so she should still be able to get it. She actually protects the 3 off the ball until she does pick it up. And so here she's finally picked it up. And right here, the number 3 has gotten past her. And so if our number 1 would sit down and turn left, she should be able to get past, although she's fairly close to that back line and may not want to try that. But that would be, if she were far enough away from the line, that would be the quickest and safest way to get past that 3 right in that position. So she does start to turn away from that horse. Now, she took a couple steps that if that were the turn she was wanting to make, she'd have been better off making it before she took those couple steps away from the goal. But it's still in a good position, still is a smart thing to do if she thinks she can get her horse turned before that back line. Taking those couple steps also got her a little bit further away from the back line. They were more to the side, but a little bit farther away from the back line before she started the turn. So her horse turns very nicely on his hind end, and then he turned nicely about 3/4 of the way around, and then gets bumped by the other player's horse. Who the other player, the number 3's horse, turned kind of on the front end and stuck the butt out there that kind of bumped our number 1 over at the last. But since our number 1 was making a left turn, this is the one you want to make at least 180 degrees. And what I mean by that, you make it 180 degrees completely around the other side, and then more to go and continue your turn to get right up against the 3 so you can connect forward of them so they don't connect forward of you. She does make the turn pretty nicely, but then doesn't jump out of it. She makes it and stops and lets the 3 get back in front. So now the 3's kind of got her, got forward of her, pretty much controlling her. She still has some room before that back line, so the correct thing to do would be to turn to her right. Once she saw that she didn't get past that 3 and the 3 had her, she shouldn't try to turn and stuff, but the 3's on the left, she should turn away to the right. But instead, she turns toward the other player and gets the ball knocked out of her racket, maybe by even the other horse. But anyhow, the ball does come loose. She does turn toward the other player, exposes her racket, and sure enough, gets the ball knocked loose. So now it's a loose ball situation. She should be going all out to prevent the number 3 from picking the ball up, and she does a pretty good job about keeping herself between the ball and the number 3, and she finally picks it up again. This time when she picks it up, she's in very similar position that she was before, except she's even closer to the back line. I don't think I would try to make that turn to the left, that's so close to that back line, but if she thought she has a good turning horse, it might still be an appropriate thing to do. If not, I would take some steps toward the sideline to jump out and away from the number 3. If she continued to follow me, then I had more room. I'd then go ahead and make my turn. If she didn't try to follow me, I would have space and try to maneuver to the side the number 3 was not facing. But she tries, or at least starts to try, to make that other left turn. And the 3 was in a position where our number 1 should have been actually blocking the 3 from being able to make that turn. Well, the 3 goes ahead and turns across the horse's butt, which they shouldn't have allowed, but they did allow. But our 1 wasn't able to hold the number 3 on one side because the umpires allowed her to pull across the back to go to the other side. But still, she makes the turn, and if she would jump out of it, if she'd make the turn, still going to the left, she needs to make it 180 degrees plus, and come around that turn, be jumping out of it, and coming right up against the number 3 to connect forward. I think she probably would have still had position to be able to connect forward of the 3 and push the 3 and her away from that back line. But she doesn't make that turn big enough and jump out of that turn to catch the 3 forward. And once again, she's in a precarious position very close to that back line. And here, if she panics, it'd be very easy to let herself be pressured into stepping over that back line. But if she doesn't panic, she's not really in a bad spot if she just stops and stands still. The 3 can only push the front of her horse in the position the 3 is in, and if the 3 starts pushing the front of their horse, you can bring the back of the horse and the whole entire horse back onto the field if the 3 does any pushing. If our number 1 tries to go forward, then she can get your whole horse out. But if you just stop right there, you really won't be under pressure of being pushed out. So she does. She relaxes and stops, and as the 3 kind of is nudging against the front of her, she sneaks the back end back onto the field, and now she has the 3 on her non-stick side, and she's got a lot of room over to her right to turn away whenever she feels like it. And she continues just moving around, and that's fine. Looks like right here she's starting to make a turn and appropriately making the turn away from the number 3. And then our camera person doesn't get everything in here, but you can kind of see that our number 1 continued the turn around to the right, and the number 3 turned away from her. This is the instance, since you're turning a right with a right-hand player, you want to make that turn 120 degrees and then jump out of it at 120 degrees to keep your racket away from them. Now, if you continue watching their feet, you can kind of see that the number 1 did come out and stayed kind of keeping her racket away out of reach, and then right about here she's angling to where her racket or the 3 is coming toward her, either way, where she's about to be within reach of the racket, where she needs to do something to protect her racket from the number 3. And fortunately for her, the number 3 stayed off of her. She had been reaching kind of closer to her, but as our number 1 turned toward the 3 side passed almost away, keeping space between her and the 3. And if the 3 is going to be staying off of you, you can always go over their head. And she actually threw it right there and made that goal.
Get passed off to the number 1, Robbie. Robbie gets the ball, starts the lineup and goal. Rachel's all over.
Okay, we're watching the blue number 1 in the end zone, and he's just caught the ball. The number 3 is in just about the perfect position to defend him, but he still has her on his non-stick side, so he's not under any pressure either. So here he moves around. He gets a little bit of space where he may be able to turn toward her. If he is able to turn toward her, has space to turn toward her, it's not enough space that I would want to make that turn, but it's probably legal. She is facing, he has her committed facing all the way to the right, so he should be able to make a turn toward her and get past her, going past her on her left. So he does try to turn toward her, but then he doesn't turn and jump out of it like he should. He turns and just stops. So she's back between him and the goal, and not committed completely, but facing slightly at least to the left. Since he has room, he could just make a step or two to the left, start going around there, and if she continues to commit all the way to the left, then he could cut back and go to the right. but he'd want to get her face committed all the way to the left before he went around to the right. So here he didn't draw her to the left. He didn't get her committed all the way to the left, and it looks like he's starting to go to the right, but if he does that, it looks like he's making that start to the right before he had her committed all the way to the left. And then he made that attempt to the right and didn't get her to commit at all. She is still facing left, and he goes back to the left. He actually put her in the blocking position to block him from getting to the goal. And he has some space. He could have he had her committed all the way to the left now, but he closed the gap where he can't really turn toward her legally at this point. He should have got her committed to the left and not closed the gap, but then once she's committed left, turn back to the right. So he must have realized he couldn't make that turn legally, stops and backs up when he was very likely within reach of a racket, but is definitely within reach of a racket right here, but then finally is turning away from here. And right here, if he would just jump kind of forward the way he's facing away from her, and then angle back towards the goal, he would either have her beat right then, or if he doesn't have her beat, as soon as she lunges forward to try to catch up with him, he turns back to the left and he could get around her then. But he doesn't continue, or it does look like he's jumping away now. His other option was to go ahead and complete that turn to his left to go around her on the backside. So now he's got some space between him and her, and he's committed all the way to the left. So it'd be another opportunity for him to sit and turn toward her and go around her to the right, or come across the face of the goal, and if she follows him, do another sit back and turn around behind her as she's trying to catch up. But he checks up again, and now instead of turning away from her, he's just checked up, let her back right up next to him where he is surely within reach of her racket, and his only option is to turn away and hopefully without getting the ball head out of his racket. If she would swing at the ball, she's likely to get out of position, so if he could get her to swing at his racket, he might be able to get some advantage to get past her. But I don't recommend exposing a racket even to try to trick them out of position. So he's finally got the racket away from her now, and she was facing pretty much the left. He didn't make such a big turn, but even now, if he had been making a turn back to his left and jumped out of it, he still probably could have gotten past her by just continuing that turn that he's making right now. But I don't know if you can see that he had his horse's head turned well toward the turn, which put his horse on the front end, so he wasn't moving out when he's making that turn. So now he's facing her again, and she's facing away, ready to go either way. She's not very well committed either side, a little more committed to the right than the left, but not completely committed. If he wanted to fake her, he should get her to take a step or two to the right until she committed completely to the right, and then go to the left or do something else. And she stayed off enough that he's able to go for a shot. If they stay off enough, you can always go over their head. And that's kind of the theory behind this one. I don't think he threw it up over her head where it's out of reach, but it did get past her and probably went between the posts.
That's it. Shoot.
Okay, watch the blue number 1, and he just caught the ball in his end zone, and you can see the number 3 is way behind, not anywhere near between him and the goal, so it should be a straight in easy shot. And he does turn, and he could have shot like from right there, but he runs all the way up to the D before he throws it, and you're really better off getting in the habit of throwing it when you get the opening rather than depending on running up to the D before you throw it, because if you always try to get right at the D to throw it, there'll be times when you'll be actually over the D.
Rachel's on that big gray wall.
Okay, we'll be watching the blue number 1 again in the area, and his job in the area begins in midfield as soon as he gets the ball, or begins as soon as he gets the ball, even if it is in midfield. And right here, his teammate has just passed him the ball in midfield, and he kind of had curved back around so he'd be available for that, which is fine, but he just has to get by all the players on the field right now. So here he comes around, kind of seeing how the field is set up. It looks like as he was turning around, all the orange players were on the left, and his players were setting up on the right side of each orange player. And right here, the first orange player he'd come to on the Palomino horse is pretty much blocked on the right side by the red player. But she's a little bit forward of him where he might be able to cut behind her, and so he may not be that right side may not be as well blocked as it could be. And the other red player out in front doesn't really have the right side blocked either. So the number 1 does a smart thing and just settles down and lets his teammates adjust their positions. So now he just kind of relaxes there for a while, and the first orange player now is well blocked on the right side, and the orange player up in front on the left, the 3 on the white horse is not blocked, and it's not expected to be blocked, but the other one up front is now blocked on the right side just fine. So he continues on around to the right, gets past 1 easily, and now here his other player didn't stay facing downfield up against one side of the orange player. As that orange player turned away from her, she should have not turned away with him. She should have stayed facing the downfield and just walked sideways up against him, or stayed between him facing downfield but staying on one side of him, even if his horse is facing away from her, or if he's turned back up field where she might have to back up a few steps. But he probably still has a way to get past on the right. And right at this point, there was somebody on the field saying a horse was hurt, so they really didn't play anymore right past here.
Robbie comes in, passes off to Story, throws it back in. Trying to save the bounce. Bounce is a little rough on this field. Rachel's molesting his stick, left and right. Give it a good throw. Hey, don't go molest.
Okay, so the blue player is taking a penalty throw, throws it back to, I think, is number 3, and now she's thrown it back, and he has it in the end zone. The opposing number 3 is in a pretty good marking up position, and as he's got it here with her on his left side, he's fairly close to the 30-yard line. So as he's going to the right side of the end zone, he should be pushing her over to the left, because he should be preparing to turn right, to turn away from her whenever he decides to turn right. And pushing her to the left will give him more maneuvering room to make his right turn as he gets towards the right side of the field. So the 3 kind of drifts off of him, still staying between him and the goal, so she's still in a position where he can't run straight to the goal, but he continues turning his horse to the left. And there was a point there when she first started drifting off, if he had gotten his shoulder in front of hers, he could have actually turned to the left, taken her with him, and pointed to the goal, which is a kind of an effective move that's hardly used on this side of the end zone. People try to do it on the left side of the end zone, but not so much on the right, when the 3 is staying back and is more susceptible to that. But here he's not trying to push her over, he's just turning there and is kind of blocked. So here he actually turned his horse's head over her rear end, which is illegal, but he's doing that trying to turn left instead of trying to turn right, and as he's doing that, he's losing ground. She's pushing him further back toward the corner. And he keeps insisting that he's going to turn toward her, and as she steps back, he has to step back even farther toward the corner to get over her. Even though he didn't get over where it's had legal clearance, she still pushed him back some because he insisted on trying to turn toward her. So he makes his break to the left, and he does it where he exposes her racket. I would have suggested, if he did insist on turning left from that, he jumped back more toward the middle of the field, toward the midfield, so that he's not within reach of her racket on that first jump to get past her. And then she's gotten a shoulder in front where he can't hardly drive around anymore, so he really needs to be turning left. And she's gotten far enough around that if he had just sit down and make a fast sharp left turn, he may actually get past her, but at least he would get away from her and get some maneuvering space. And he checks back across her hind end again. She's staying between him and the goal, and instead of just checking back, he would have been better off making that left turn. Now that she's between him and the goal, he can come up on her, so she'll be on his non-stick side, and then make a right turn away if he doesn't get past her the first jump. No, but he turns back to the left without making her commit all the way to the right. And in the position he's in right now, it's kind of the position I suggest to make that jump to get past him. If you're taking him on your stick side, that you jump slightly away from them so that your racket is not within their range as you come past him. And the angle he is at right now, if he'd continue on like toward almost to the umpire, until he got past their racket and then veer back towards the goal or whichever way he wanted to go. But as soon as you see that he's not going, as he sees he's not going to make it, like right about here, where she has sped up to catch up to him, if he would just plant his horse, make a big left turn. Once he turned around and faced the goal, she would not be there. But he doesn't try to do that and has exposed his racket again. So she swung at his racket, and that put her a little behind. So now his shoulder is in front, and if he can just keep it in front, he might be able to make the goal. If he would throw it like right now or within the next stride before she has time to catch up again. If he decides not to do that, he needs to be turning away from her, and you want to turn away from her when she is behind and speeding up to try to catch up, which she's about to be doing here in probably the next stride. So it looks like he is going to not try to get the pass off, but check up and make a left. I assume he'll make a left turn. Here it looks like his horse is not very willing to just sit down and turn around, which is the kind of most effective move to make right then when they're trying to catch up. But he takes several more strides before his horse finally starts to make the turn. Turning away is still the thing to do, whether it's a tight turn or a gradual turn. So sure enough, he's made a few more strides and does start to turn away. And as he's turning away, he can see that the number 3 is turning toward him. So if he would just tighten up his turn, he would probably get a look at the goal. If he didn't if the number 3 was still kind of there, he would be so far in front of her if he tightened up his turn that he could just connect with her and bend her the rest of the way toward the goal. Because she turned toward him, she put herself in that kind of a weak position that he could take advantage of. But instead of turning tight or turning and jumping out of his turn like he should always do, he turns and just stops, giving the 3 a time to get well up against him and forward of him where he cannot turn left really anymore. So he missed that opportunity to get past. And here he does your basic stop and go. I've said there's only 3 moves you make to get past somebody, either a tight turn, a gradual turn, or a stop and go. And this is a good example of the stop and go, where he stopped and then tries to take off before the number 3 can take off and kind of get forward of her. So that would be the plan, and he's doing it with all her up against him, but on his non-stick side, so it's safe. And if it doesn't work, he's still safe. But that would be the idea of doing that stop, getting her a little bit out of position, or making her take off a little bit too late where you can get the shoulder in front of her. So sure enough, he does get his shoulder in front. So now he's well in front and should be able to just bend her on around. And that is the correct way to do it. It is not correct to pass her up and turn toward the goal. But bending her toward the goal and shooting straight is correct. And if you see so far in front now, it's actually should be very easy to do from him in that position. So it does. He's trying to bend her on around, and here he's almost getting too far forward where he's in danger of passing her up. And if you're in danger of passing her up, even if they're checking up, it's still illegal, even if you pass them up, to continue your turn in front of them unless there is at least 4 feet clearance in front of their horse's nose. And here he's a little bit forward where he's in danger of that happening, where he could actually slow down a bit, stay with her, and continue bending her. But he does stay on that same side of her. I'm just saying he's getting close to where he might slip past her, and that would be illegal. But he doesn't he doesn't pass her up. He stays on that side and gets the shot off right at the D, like he seems to always want to do.
Throws it in. Robbie collects. Nice. Was it through?
Okay, when I first watched this, I thought the blue number 1 had slipped in front of the 3 and turned illegally. But when I look back and slow it down, I can tell he actually was legal. But I'll point it out here, and it's hard to see the ball when things get connected. But he's working in the end zone, positioning himself for a pass right now, and the number 3 is a little bit behind and 2 on his left side. So as he's looking for the pass on the right, the number 3 actually changes direction there, and now the number 3 is headed to his right side, trying to get between him and the pass. And then when he turns left, she turns toward him again, maybe where she's crossing again, but anyhow, she is the one turning toward him, if there is. Of course, nothing was called. But he has just collected the pass now, and she has gotten between. She tried to play between the number 1 and the ball carrier. And pretty much any time as the number 1, you find the 3 playing between you and the ball carrier. If you ever get possession of it, they are going to be behind. You go straight to the goal, and that's pretty much what happened here. Once she jumped out to get between him and the ball carrier to try to intercept the pass, once he got the pass, then she's behind, and there's nobody between him and the goal, and he just goes straight in.
Now I'm in. Alright. Kiki's running down the ball. She's got nice control of her horse. Checks up, bounces on the line. Recovers. She's got to get around that number 3, Libby. Big race, season opening shoot.
Oh, okay, we're watching the blue team, and the blue number 1 just caught the pass, and they're wanting to score to the left side of the screen. That is her blue player behind her, and of course the other blue player just past her the ball is the closest other player to her. All the black players are farther away from her than the blue players. So she should start out having a pretty easy way making it down the field. Her teammate picks up the closest black player very wisely, and she's looking over to see where the number 3 is, the opposing number 3, to see how she's going to connect up, or what kind of problems she'll have working her way down and getting into the area. So all that's good so far. Now you can see the 3 coming up on the screen over to our number 1's left, and she's got some players between her and the 3. The ideal thing for our number 1 to do would be to come right over and connect to the 3 well forward of her, and just hold her and control her all the way down and run straight to the goal. But with those other players between her, she wouldn't want to come straight over there now, because if she got up against the 3, she would have a black player on her stick side also. So just hanging out kind of at the angle, letting things develop, is still the correct thing to do. Now as they get closer, the 3 that she would have to be coming across is drifted back, and now our number 1 is staying forward of the number 3. So as they come together, our number 1 wants to connect forward of the number 3, and that's all still good. And now she's letting the 3 drift forward of her. Up until this point, she was still in a good position, and how well the number 1 does their job in midfield determines how easy their job is in the end zone. And if she would have stayed forward of the 3 as they got close, connected forward of the 3, and held her so she could run straight to the goal once she got to the end zone, that would have been the easiest thing. For the 3 wants to make the 1 enter the end zone as close to the side of the field as possible. And if she gets forward, she'll be able to push her towards the side of the field. The 3 had been in a very good position to have pushed the 1 as much as she wanted, even gotten her turned all the way to where she had to turn around and do something else. But the 3 is not positioning her horse correctly. I think it's pretty obvious that horse she's on isn't really doing everything she wants it to do. But she's ending up connecting or staying forward of the number 1, and so our number 1 is getting pushed farther towards the side of the field. It's okay to be controlled, and as long as you can get in, but you just have a weaker position the closer you get to the side of the field. The weaker your position is to maneuver and work in the end zone. So here the number one is actually almost voluntarily moving closer towards the side of the field. Anyhow, the three is in a pretty good blocking position if she would be able to get her horse to move up against the one, but she hadn't been able to seem to do that. So our one continues on down, and then right here where the number three actually positions her horse's head to the left, she is able to get her horse up against our one. So our one is going to be going into the end zone with the three actually up against her, connected with her, and our one is fairly close to the sideline, but still has enough room to maneuver. So there she goes, and now she's got it completely in the end zone. The number three has shifted back forward, gotten between her and the goal, and our number one should be planning to turn right. In order to turn right to get past the number three, she should first start her turn slowly to draw the three, to position the three so the three is facing the sideline before she starts her turn away from her, so the three has to turn farther to get back. So right now our number one needs to be turning right, and she needs to reposition that number three a little bit before she starts her right turn by gradually heading to the right a little bit. And she does it. She gradually heads to the right, but our three doesn't come to the right with her. Our three actually did something that is good for the one and started moving away from her, so we have distance. She has space now to turn toward the number three. So if she wants to turn toward the number three, she should take another step or two straight, so that the three has to commit all the way to the right rather than facing the goal before she turns toward her and tries to go past her on the left. Well, she goes ahead and makes the turn toward her to go to the left without making the three commit to the right. So she's going to have a much harder time getting past her on this turn. And now she didn't try to get past, and it looks like she may try to maybe turn back or something. But if she wants to turn back, she needs to take at least a step or two more, like forward the way she's facing, to make the black player commit all the way to the left before she turns toward her and tries to go back on the right. But she doesn't change her direction. She tries to go, starts coming past on the left where the the player was already angling to the left, wasn't committed completely to the left, but was already angled that way and had plenty of room to get to her before the number one would have passed her up. So now our number one still has room to turn back to the left, and now that our number three is committed completely to the left, our number one would try to go. It'd be a good time for her to turn toward the three and go to the right. But she elects not to do that. She elects to do, and she had other options. There was plenty of space to go back to the to go to the right, turn toward her, go to the right. She could have continued away from her, kind of heading towards the umpire to try to get past her on the right or on the left, but taking her on the stick side. But her stick would have been well away from her when she jumped away. Or she could have turned away, but she elected to do the one thing that the book says don't do, which is go up and expose your racket to them. So she exposes the racket. They do take a swing at the racket, and of course, because they took a swing at the racket, that put the number 3 behind. So since she survived the swing at the racket, still has the ball, now she's in front. If she wanted to, she could just throw the ball out sideways right between the posts, right where she's at right now. And she is forward out of reach of the racket where the number 3 is going to be trying to catch up. If she elects not to throw it right away, right now, she could make a hard turn to her left, and as the 3 is speeding up to catch up to her again, the 3 would probably not make that turn, and the goal would be wide open to shoot at. And she kind of does that. She kind of started her turn, instead of taking the shot, makes a turn away from the 3. She did a pretty gradual turn and is 2 or 3 strides after she could have. But it's still a very safe and appropriate thing to do, and she'll either make it or she won't. She'd have had more chance of getting past her if she had made it quickly, tightly, right when the number 3 was behind and trying to catch up. But it's all still safe and still by the book. And as she makes her turn, the number 3, probably because that horse is a little not as settled as most of the 3 she's playing against, but the 3 is nowhere to be seen. The goal's wide open. She turns and has an easy shot at the goal.